Most people think West Texas is dying of thirst, and they're right, except for this one place where 25 million gallons a day come screaming out of the ground, and it runs straight through a town of 2,500 people that most of Texas drives past without a second thought. People will tell you Junction's a truck stop, a place you just pass through, but they're wrong. This is Junction, Texas, where the Edwards Plateau crashes into the Stockton Plateau, right here, creating something that shouldn't exist. A spring-fed river that runs cold and crystal clear through ranch country, so dry it looks like it belongs 300 miles west. This far west, water is supposed to be scarce, alkaline, and seasonal. Instead, you get this, a river that holds its flow even in August, fed by springs pushing 20 to 30 million gallons a day out of the limestone. The water comes out at 70 degrees year-round. In July, when the air hits 103, that river is a biological miracle. But here's what nobody tells you about Junction. This isn't just where West Texas meets the hill country. This is where two completely different versions of Texas collide, where the romance of the hills runs headfirst into the brutality of the Chihuahua Desert. And that collision created the best water in West Texas. And the South Llano River is the proof of that.
What's up YouTube? It's Matt with the Matt Out Here YouTube channel.
And today we are here at South Llano River State Park, and it's pretty cold today.
If you're new to the channel, welcome. And if you're a returning visitor, welcome back. Today, we got out on the road early and we came out here to the South Llano River, nearby Junction, Texas. We're just out here exploring this place, checking out the river, checking out the old barns, the old homestead, and just getting out in nature, closing our laptops for the week, getting away from technology and relaxing. That's what life is about. All right, y'all, let's get after it.
And today, we have a special guest, my dad. First things first, I stopped to check out the river from overhead the bridge. That's when you kind of see it, that impossible green cutting through limestone and drought-hardened ranch country. The South Llano doesn't look like it belongs here, and that's because it shouldn't. Then, I drove down to the visitor center to check in and get acquainted with the park. South Llano River State Park wasn't supposed to be a park at all. It was a ranch, the old Walter Buck Ranch. 7,600 acres of mesquite and cedar and limestone that got passed around until 1977 when Texas Parks and Wildlife saw what everyone else missed. This wasn't just good land, this was an ecological anomaly. The park sits on 2,630 acres now, but what matters isn't the size, it's the location. The South Llano feeds directly into the Llano River just downstream, and this stretch right here is where the Edwards Aquifer decides to show off. Those springs don't slow down, they don't stop. Even during the 2011 drought when the rest of Texas was cracking open, this river kept flowing, and that consistency creates something rare, a hill country river system that actually supports life year-round.
I always enjoy coming up the Junction. It's a old town feel, like the old West for the cowboys. Sheep were run up here, big ranches. It's a great goat industry out here. It's relaxing. It's like going back in time.
Here at the South Llano River State Park, over 240 bird species have been documented. And if you want to see them up close, here's the Laura's Bird Blind, a covered observation station 15 feet from a natural spring where you can watch species that shouldn't be in the same frame together. The golden cheek warblers, black-capped vireos, painted buntings, so bright they look photoshopped. The blind is part of the park and it's open year-round. So we just stopped in a bird blind. There's so many different types of birds here.
Looking out the window here, you'll see some feeders set up. They have a nice little fountain. They have a water reservoir. Birds are out, and you're out of the wind in this spot.
The cold weather's bringing out the birds today. There's an old barn still standing here in the park. It's made out of wood and limestone and now rust. The kind of structure that doesn't ask for attention, it just sits there, holding on to a version of Texas that doesn't exist anymore. This was the Walter Buck Ranch before it was a park, and before that it was part of a bigger story, one that built the hill country from the ground up. Junction sits in Kimball County, and Kimball County was born from sheep and goats and stubbornness. In the 1870s and 80s, settlers moved into this country and realized the land would not cooperate. The soil was too thin for cotton, too rocky for row crops. Summers were too hot, winters were too unpredictable, and the cedar and the mesquite didn't care what you wanted. So they brought animals that could survive, sheep and Angora goats that could eat what cattle wouldn't touch, herds that could turn limestone hills and sparse grass into wool and mohair, and money. By the early 1900s, this region was producing more mohair than anywhere else in the country. Junction became a shipping hub. Wool and mohair moved through here by the ton, headed to markets in San Antonio and beyond. Ranches spread across the plateau, and families built their lives around animals tough enough to make it in the country that didn't forgive mistakes. Cattle came later, but they had to be the right kind of cattle. Longhorns came first because they were half wild and didn't need much. Then Herefords and crossbreeds that could handle the heat and the terrain. Ranching out here wasn't about getting rich, it was about lasting. And that barn, that quiet, weathered barn, is what lasted. It represents something deeper than agriculture. It's proof that people figured out how to live here, how to read the land, work with what it gave them, and build something that mattered. The roots of Texas aren't in the cities or in the oil fields. They're in places like this, in families who stayed when it got hard, and in barns that held feed and tools and hope through droughts and hard winters, and years when the market bottomed out. The South Llano River was the reason it all worked. Water meant survival. It meant your herd could drink, your family could stay, and your legacy could grow. That barn, it just stands there now. The sheep are gone. The mohair industry has mostly moved on. But the land still remembers, and if you stand there long enough, you can still feel what it took to build Texas out of nothing but rock and grass and spring water. The people who worked this land didn't get monuments. They got barns, and there's something pretty neat about that. So last night, temperatures got down to freezing, and we've got ice in some of the cooler spots that hasn't melted away yet. It's just solid ice here in all these little corners and all these little crevices. It got cold last night here in Texas. Walter Buck homesteaded this land in the early 1900s and raised his family here for decades before the state bought it in 1977. The house still stands near the river, exactly where he built it. And this is where the Texas Hill Country starts to touch West Texas. If you're getting something out of these videos, hit that subscribe button. I'm on a mission to visit and document every state park in Texas, not just the highlights, but the deep dive. The history, the geology, the moments that make these places worth the drive. I want to show you what makes each one special. Whether you're planning a trip or just need a reason to get outside, this channel is about getting out in nature and finding myself along the way. And honestly, it's about sharing the beauty of Texas with anyone willing to watch. So if that sounds like something you want to be a part of, subscribe, comment, like, and let's do this together. There's a small cemetery in the park, 3 graves all from the 1800s. One of them belongs to Charles W. Pepper, born September 6, 1856, died April 27, 1879. He was 22 years old. The records don't say much about how he died or why he's buried here, but the timing tells you enough. This was frontier country in 1879 and very dangerous and unforgiving. People died young out here from accidents, disease, violence, or just bad luck. What matters is someone cared enough to bury him properly, to mark the grave, to make sure his name didn't disappear into the limestone. That cemetery is a reminder that before this was a park, before it was even a ranch, this was someone's home. The cold weather had the animals moving slow, so slow that I almost missed this porcupine working the brush line along an old ranch fence. I think he was just trying to warm up, but needless to say, it goes to show how much wildlife is here at the South Llano River State Park. Stepping onto the interactive trail feels like home because it is home. Native grasses, towering oaks and pecans, cactus scattered everywhere, and minimal cedar. This is what the hill country looked like before we changed it, and Texas Parks and Wildlife is bringing it back 1 acre at a time. The moment we've all been waiting for, the South Llano River. The South Llano River runs 61 miles from its headwaters in Sutton County down to Junction, where it joins the North Llano to form the Llano River. What matters is the springs. The river is fed by the Edwards Aquifer, massive underground reservoirs of water trapped in fractured limestone. Those springs push 20 to 30 million gallons a day to the surface, and the water comes out cold, 70 degrees year-round in the middle of August when the air is over 100 degrees. That river stays cold enough to shock your system, and because it's spring-fed, it doesn't dry up. Most hill country rivers are seasonal. They flood in the spring, slow to a trickle by summer, and disappear entirely during drought. The South Llano doesn't stop. It held its flow through the 2011 drought when lakes were dying and rivers across Texas went bone dry. That consistency is why life thrives here. Guadalupe bass, the state fish of Texas, live in this river. So do long-ear sunfish and freshwater mussels that can't survive in warm or unstable water. The South Llano has some of the cleanest water in Texas, and you can see it. 10 feet down, you can count rocks on the bottom. The river also defines the landscape. It carved the valleys, shaped the limestone bluffs, and created the riparian corridor that pulls in wildlife from miles around. Birds, deer, javelina, porcupines, they all follow the water. And for over a century, people followed it too. Ranchers, settlers, families who knew that if you had access to this river, you had a future and country that didn't promise anything to you. The South Llano isn't the biggest river in Texas, it's not the longest or the wildest, but it might be one of the most honest rivers in Texas. It does exactly what it's always done. It flows cold, stays clear, and keeps everything around it alive. People have trusted this river for a long time, and they'll trust it for many years to come. After spending some time on the river trail observing that crystal clear water, I walked through the turkey roosting area to check out Buck Lake. What's neat about the turkey roosting area is how tall the trees are. There's massive pecan trees and oak trees that stretch 40 to 50 feet high. Wild turkeys roost high because they can't see in the dark. Once the sun goes down, they're vulnerable. Coyotes, bobcats, and foxes, anything that hunts at night becomes a threat. So turkeys fly up into the tallest trees they can find. They get as high as possible and wait it out until the morning. Turkeys aren't great flyers, but they can get up there. A wild turkey can fly short bursts at 50 miles per hour and roost 30 feet off the ground or higher. And they prefer trees near water because that's where the food is. They would scavenge for insects, seeds, and acorns. The South Llano River gives them everything they need in one place. The park protects this roosting habitat intentionally. Wild turkey populations crashed in Texas during the early 1900s due to overhunting and habitat loss, but restoration efforts brought them back. And places like this, tall trees, clean water, protected land, are why you'll see them here now. And if you're quiet in the early morning or late evening, you might catch them coming or going. It's not subtle. 30-pound birds crashing through branches sounds exactly like how you'd think. Something else interesting, when I was a young boy living out on my grandfather's ranch, I stole about a dozen chicken eggs from him. He told me I owed him some eggs, so I went out searching. One morning I saw a wild turkey fly off from her nest in a corner of my grandfather's pecan orchard. I hurried over and discovered 30 or more wild turkey eggs just sitting there. I took them to my grandfather and he incubated them. Next thing I knew, I had 20 or so turkeys following me around the ranch. Most kids can't say they owned wild turkeys as pets. I could. It was a neat experience that a lot of kids can't say they had. Something neat to my childhood that I just thought I'd share with y'all.
We just got down to Buck Lake. It's really serene here. It's very chill, very relaxing. Definitely the place to be on a day off from work. Pecan trees are huge.
After wrapping up on the trails, we headed back to the car. On our way out of the park, we spotted a small axis deer herd crossing the road. Non-native animals to Texas, but beautiful nonetheless. After leaving the park, we drove down Main Street in Junction, which gives off that small town Texas feel. Then we crossed the South Llano River Bridge, a steel truss built in 1937 that's still standing strong over the water. It's on the National Register of Historical Places. After that, we stopped at Junction City Park to see the river from a different perspective. The park sits right on the South Llano and you get direct access to the water. Clearer here than almost anywhere else in the region. Families come here to swim, fish, and camp along the banks. It's a local spot and it's not overrun with tourists, and it gives you a ground level view of why this river matters to the people who live here. After checking out the city park, we drove around exploring the canyons and the hills surrounding Junction. The landscape shifts fast. There's limestone bluffs carved by water and time, plateaus that drop into valleys, and the desert meets the hill country in every direction. Then we headed to the Junction Scenic Overlook at Lover's Leap, and this is where it all clicks. You're standing high above the town with a full view of the South Llano cutting through the valley, and the collision of two plateaus laid out in front of you. You can see why people settled here, why the water matters, why this became the crossroads it is. After a long day of hiking and exploring, we stopped in at Lum's Barbecue for a quick bite. After wrapping up a late lunch, I headed over to a secret spot off the highway to catch a glimpse of a waterfall my dad had known about. It's not marked, it's not on the maps, and that's exactly how it should be. Before wrapping up this trip to Junction, Texas, I want to say this. The trip was amazing, and I'll definitely be back soon. But folks, remember this place, Junction. It has a lot to offer, but don't ruin it for what it is. The beauty of Junction is its seclusiveness, its peace and quiet. The fact that it hasn't been discovered and overrun and turned into something it was never meant to be is amazing, and let's keep it that way. Keep the city in the city. So if you come explore this place, bring peace and good vibes with you and leave the rest behind. Well folks, that's going to be a wrap on this video. Hope y'all enjoyed the South Llano River as much as I did, and I hope you're putting this park down on your list to come check out. Until next time y'all, I hope you have a great week and a good weekend. Take care.